get out the door and run. But how fast? Are you going too slow to get fit? Should you go faster? Or should you slow down, go slower, so that you can go further? It's a common question, so let's answer it for you. When you put those shoes on and head out the door for a run, your motivation and enthusiasm is high. You know this is good for you. But after a few hundred yards, those doubts start creeping in.
Oh, have I gone too fast? Can't run like this much longer.
Or maybe...
Oh, I'm going so slow, this is embarrassing. I can't even be getting fitter at this speed.
Or maybe it alternates between the two. Either way, it doesn't do much for your enjoyment of the run. So what pace should you be running at? We're going to start by explaining what the different paces look like, because often beginners think they have two paces, running and not running. This is Phil, and he's going to help us demonstrate the different paces. So we're going to work backwards. You're warmed up, aren't you, Phil?
Very warm, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Right, first, I'm going to get you running pretty much as hard as you can. A pace you can only sustain for about 30 seconds. Ready?
Yes.
Let's go. This is Phil's VO2 Max, or Zone 5 if you like names. All right. Now, you can use this pace to do some intervals that will really boost your fitness quickly. However, a word of caution. If you're a beginner just starting out running, you should not be using this zone at all. Running this fast on unconditioned muscles, tendons, and ligaments is a recipe for an injury. So don't use VO2 Max or Zone 5 until you've done a fair amount of work at the lower zones, such as Zone 4, your threshold zone. Should we do that one, Phil? All right, Phil, so this is a pace you can sustain for a 5 to 10 kilometer race. All out effort for 5 to 10 kilometers. Let's get up to that pace. At this pace, breathing should be hard. Your muscles are going to start burning after a while, and talking should be almost impossible. Can you talk to me, Phil?
Very little.
This is the kind of pace that really pushes up your aerobic functioning. And you're going to start, as you're building up, with intervals of 30 to 90 seconds with a decent walk, jog, recovery in between. And as you get fitter, you can build up to 2 to 4 minute intervals at this pace. But you really should only be hitting this zone at most once a week. Next up, we have Zone 3, or tempo pace. Now this is a pace that feels like you're working. You will be breathing, but you can still talk. Phil will be able to say some sentences, but he'll probably stick to 3 to 4 word sentences and have to pause to breathe every now and then. So what are your plans for the weekend, Phil?
Oh, probably at a kid's birthday party or something like that.
Are you invited to the kid's birthday party or just gate crashing? Oh, you taking your kids to a the driver, fair enough. Now, this pace feels good. It feels like you're working hard, and it feels like you're getting a good workout out of it. But it actually holds some tricky drawbacks, because this pace wears you out a bit.
That is kind of why I'm here, though.
To wear yourself out, yeah, fair enough. However, there's a bit of a catch-22 here, because if you run all your runs at this pace, which is what a lot of runners do end up doing, you're less likely to run again tomorrow. You're also less likely to run as far, which means you'll probably burn less calories overall than if you took the pace down a notch. Now, that's not to say you should never run at this pace. You should definitely do some workouts at this pace, but try to stick to one tempo run a week where you hold this pace for 5 up to 20 minutes, and the rest of the time, do your workouts at a slightly slower pace. So now we get to the pace you should be running at, most of the time anyway. Zone 2, or your aerobic endurance pace. Now this pace should feel comfortable. You should be able to breathe comfortably. You will be breathing, you will be working, but you can hold a conversation. In fact, you could probably tell a whole long story. Can't you, Phil?
Yeah,
you can talk now.
Actually, I told you I'm thinking about doing an Ironman.
Okay, I'm trying to explain to the viewers. We can pick that up in a minute.
Okay.
But I don't want to hear about that Ironman, Phil. The point is, at this pace, talking should be really comfortable. You may have to pause your story every now and then to catch your breath, but for the most part, you could talk the whole time. Now, if you want to know exactly what your zone 2 is, you can actually work it out. What you do is a 20-minute time trial, take 95% of your average heart rate for that time trial, and then plug it into a lactate threshold heart rate zone calculator. And it'll tell you exactly what heart rate is your zone 2, what the lower level is, and what the upper level is, so you can stick to it accurately. But you don't have to go to those extremes. You can just use the cues we've introduced to you here today, how hard you breathe in, what it feels like, and how much talking you can do. The thing with zone 2 is that it's hard to stick to. It almost feels lazy. It feels like you're not putting out enough effort. It feels like you're not working hard enough to get those aerobic endurance, that fitness gains that you're aiming for. But if you stick to it for a few weeks, religiously, you might even have to walk up some of the hills on your next run, you'll soon find that you can run a decent pace in zone 2, and your aerobic endurance will pay big dividends. Now finally, we have zone 1, or the recovery zone. Now this is a really slow shuffle, sometimes even a walk for most people. And in training, you'd really only ever use this if you were doing a recovery from an interval or something like this. To be honest, if you're just going out and doing your whole run in this zone, this slow, it probably is actually a waste of time. You'd be better off doing something constructive while you were moving, like mowing the lawn or something. We hope today's video has helped you judge your pace for the next run. Thanks for joining me, Phil. Appreciate you putting yourself through those paces today. Just remember, in every training session, there's space for work in all of the zones. Just don't do too much work in one zone at the expense of doing work in the other zones. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our running videos. Thanks for watching and happy running.